right, looking like we've got Nancy, Director Burgess online. Hello.
Hello.
So with that, we do have all 10 of us here, so we have a quorum. So with that, I'll call to order the Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District Board meeting for Wednesday, November 20th. It is 3:30 p.m. here at Giddings. This is our new hour moving forward at 3:30. So welcome to everyone. With that, if we can all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America. Oh, I can't hear.
Honor the Texas flag.
Thank you all. All right, with that, we'll move on to public comments. If anybody would like to have a say in public comments, please sign up. I've got one person so far signed up here. If there's anyone online, please let us know. If seeing none, then Mr. Weir, Andy Weir, and you've got a comment on non-agenda item.
I'm Andy Weir with the Simsboro Aquifer Water Defense Fund. And just one brief comment. 2024 Well Producers Report, which is in the board packet, indicates that Darling Ingredient has a permit for 224 acre-feet of water per year. As of October 2024, they've reached that limit. So they're at 100.7% of production. If production continues at the 2024 rate, they'll end the year at about 120% of their permitted volume. So SAWDF is curious to know what actions under the district's rules, section 13, investigation and enforcement, are or will be taken by Lost Pines. Now, relative to other Lost Pines permits, this is a small volume of water. But how the district responds to this situation will set a precedent. And there'll probably be incidents such as this in the future. We all are aware of the ongoing litigation with Aqua Texas Incorporated, an investor-owned utility, IOU they call it, and their permit with Hayes Trinity Groundwater Conservation District. And there was exceeding the permit, had dramatic effects on their DFC, that's Jacob's Well, etc. So those same legal arguments may be coming to Lost Pines as your larger permits begin to come into play and begin to produce and supply water to the dynamic growth outside, your neighboring counties. So SAWDF just urges you to take this opportunity to exercise the rules under section 13 so that you set a foundation for your actions that may be necessary to provide future regulation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comments? Anyone online? All right. Seeing none, then we will move on to agenda item 3, the consent agenda. These items are routine, will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion or action on these items unless requested by a board director. Does any director would like to pull anything out for any further discussion? No, seeing none. Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Move that we accept the consent.
Motion by Director Smith.
Second.
And second, I heard first Director Cole. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Regular agenda. Then item 4A, announcements. With that, we do have an announcement by our General Counsel, Natasha Martin.
I was hoping to say we had one less lawsuit. Which we do, but there is the potential. So as you all know, on October 18th, the Third Court of Appeals denied LCRA's motion for rehearing to hear to basically reconsider the validity of NDOT. And so in denying it, that gave LCRA the opportunity to petition the Supreme Court of Texas. And so LCRA has asked for an extension of time in order to file that brief with the Supreme Court. Regardless of that, I think this is still this is something to celebrate for the district. And so the case has been going on since 2018, but we will see what happens. So you asked about LCRA 1. There could be more on that to come. And then for Rambo, we had Judge Abels recommend to you, the board, that environmental stewardship didn't get standing, essentially, and then also denied another motion for relief at the preliminary hearing. And so that order for your review and consideration would be coming to you guys in December on environmental stewardship's request. Any questions?
Public hearing, or is it just a matter of?
It's just a matter before the board. So it's a final hearing on Judge Abels' order.
And so that will be scheduled for the December 18th
Board
meeting.
Right. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Now we'll move on to regular agenda item 4B, presentation by the Texas Water Development Board on their springs monitoring program. We have a gentleman online who will be presenting, Cody Bjornson of Texas Water Development Board, and you should have, it looks like we have the presentation in hard copy here at the dais. So with that, Cody?
Yes, can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, and I can share my screen so I can also put the slides up there if you'd
please
like.
do. Please
Okay,
do.
let me. Let's see. So are y'all able to see the slides right now, or is it?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay.
If you could, yeah, perfect. Yeah, if you can go to slideshow mode or expand it, yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Well, hey everyone, my name is Cody Bjornson. I'm with the Texas Water Development Board. I'm here as, actually I didn't catch your name, but as you said, I'm here to present on the Springs Monitoring Program, and thank you all for having me. I know we've been trying to get something scheduled for a while now, so happy to be here. And I'll go into a little bit of the background of the program, some of updates, where we're at today, and turn it back onto y'all at Lost Pines at the end here. As far as the history goes, we've not really had a springs program in the past. This is a relatively new thing, unlike our water level and water quality programs. In the past, we've done water quality sampling at springs, but oftentimes it's been a part of other external projects that we've been participating in some way or another. And then even fewer than the water quality samples at springs, there's been even fewer flow measurements conducted by the TWDB. And if there has been a flow measurement taken in the past, there's really not been much follow-up or repeat measurements, which really give you an idea as to how a spring is behaving over time. And in my opinion, the most important aspect of spring monitoring. So all that being said, after about a year of being at the Water Development Board, I pitched the Springs program to the higher up folks, and they liked it. And It's basically an effort to address the lack of data collected and reported on springs of Texas. So we initiated this in 2020 using existing resources. I created a site selection criteria, and we, at the end, collected samples and measured flow at 11 springs, not all of which we monitor today. Some of them, yes, though. And as you can see on the photos, 2020, it was a challenging year, COVID, we were wearing masks in the field, sort of unusual, but reminiscent of the past. As far as the goals of the program, this line here says it quite well. We're trying to document the springs of Texas and do short and long-term monitoring and flow rates and water quality. So this is kind of clumped into two different categories. We have program springs, which we visit annually. When we visit them annually, we'll take annual baseline parameters. So like water quality, or as far as water quality goes, temperature, pH, and conductivity, which is a proxy for total dissolved solids. We'll also do a flow measurement. And typically the first time that we visit a spring, we'll do an extensive suite of water quality analyses, that cover drinking water standards all the way to isotopes, which can be used to help better understand the source water and the relative age of the groundwater coming out from the spring. And then the other aspect are non-program springs. It's essentially just documenting new ones, but we're not going to visit them annually. And the purpose there is to not only document more, but establish baseline conditions at those springs that we visit, so that if anyone in the future were to be interested in studying this said spring, they would have something to go off of and to compare to, down the line. So some of the criteria for the Springs program, I'll just preface by saying that this list has been modified over time as gotten a better grip on what we're looking at doing with the Springs program. And also not all of these criteria are required to add a spring to the annual site visit. It's just a proxy, something to look at, to consider when evaluating when or which springs we're going to visit annually. Since y'all have the list and probably got to see it in advance time, I'll just comment on a couple things like magnitude of spring flow. In the beginning, we did visit some really small springs and found that it's much harder to really get an accurate measurement at those, depending on the method used. So things like that, we err on the side of, a little bit more flow is preferred because we can get better data on it. And then also, springs that aren't already a part of a routine monitoring program or like really well studied, such as, Barton Springs, or maybe a spring that already has a USGS gauge associated with it, or like Jacob's Well, right? Those are already covered. And the point of the program is to really try and extrapolate, get more data points with a geographic range. And then last of the criteria here, springs that are included in one of Gunnar Brune's texts. He worked at the TWDB decades ago, and he did major in historical springs of Texas with the Water Development Board. It is a numbered report. And then he did a self-published Springs of Texas Volume 1, which is known to be the most comprehensive documentation of springs in Texas from 1981. And following up on those springs, I think is great, and a great criteria for adding to the annual program, because they do have that baseline data. They have some sort of documentation from like the 60s or 70s, as far as like, even if it's just a description or a flow measurement or water quality. Those are things that are great to know, and compare to present day. And here's the current day list, or the current map of springs in our program. You'll notice a lot of them are in the Edwards plateau, but we are trying to expand that geographic range and the different aquifers. The blue ones are actively monitored annually. The orange ones are inactive. It means maybe they were visited once or they were previously visited annually, but we stopped doing it for some reason or another. And then the green ones are not only actively visited annually, but they have a pressure transducer installed at them. And a pressure transducer is just a little cylindrical device that we can install in a spring channel to get hourly stage readings, or the height of water in a channel. And you can imagine with hourly readings, you get a pretty nice hydrograph over time of the stage of water. And when we go visit and download that data, we also do a flow measurement adjacent to that device. And over time, we are able to create a relationship between flow and the height of water. And then we can basically make a full-on hydrograph later down the line of the actual flow of the spring. And what's great about that is it gives us more insight towards groundwater, surface water interaction. It allows us to look at, how a spring responds to drought or nearby pumping or significant recharge events, at a really high resolution. And what's cool about this particular site that I'm showing here, it's the most recent one I installed a pressure transducer at because I was able to work with the Erie County Underground Water Conservation District. They facilitated site access and have joined me on all the field work. And it's possible that one day they might be able to take over the monitoring at this site, which has been a really cool working relationship. And I think it would be great to be able to pass the torch off to them and have this site in their own backyard and, be able to collect data more frequently. So as I mentioned, I think flow is probably the most important aspect of collecting springs data. And so there's 3 methods that we actively use. My favorite one here is using the Flow Tracker 2, which is basically a computer that allows you to get very accurate flow measurements. And it has all these quality assistance and control parameters built into it. And when we do 2 measurements at once, as pictured in this photo here, we're able to take the average so long as, assuming that they're very close to one another, and get a very confident reading on the flow there at a particular site. This method was, doing volumetric method of flow, and it's kind of the timeless one, very low tech, but it's basically the bucket and stopwatch method. And what's great about it is you can do it at very low cost, but usually requires you to manipulate the flow channels to some degree so that you can get some centralized pour over to fill a bag, and then pour that water into a known volume container and get the flow that way. We'll typically do this flow or this method at springs that we're unable to use the flow tracker at. And lastly, a flume is another method of measuring flow. And while it has some more kind of high upfront cost, as well as time-intensive field visit to get it installed permanently, like you don't want flow to be escaping from around it, and you need it to be extremely level for the measurements to be accurate. But the beauty of it is once it's installed, it's good to go, and you can just show up on the site and get a reading there on that stage and plug that into an equation associated with the model of your flume and get a really reliable measurement. And I'll say that there's only one spring in our program right now that has one of these. It was installed by the Nature Conservancy, but we are looking into more options like that down the line. So the benefits of all this, I think, like a big thing that I've been talking about, groundwater, surface water interaction. It's a big topic at the Water Development Board. We're trying to learn more about that and tie, the link between springs and groundwater. And this data can ultimately be used and incorporated into regional water planning, groundwater availability models, and so on. And then also, updates to Gunnar Bruin's text of Springs of Texas. As far as data availability goes, right now, all of the flow measurements in the program are on the Texas Water Data Hub. And then y'all might be familiar with our groundwater data viewer. In that website, you can look at our scanned documents, our field sheet, see the flow measurements and field notes, and of course, our groundwater database reports page, which is a little less intuitive, but there you can access water quality. And if anyone doesn't know where any of this stuff is, I'm happy to provide links after the fact. Maybe I can send it to a group, or you can reach out to me directly with my contact information. So one thing I would like to say recently, I've experienced a lot more requests from private landowners that want their spring to be visited and either added annually to the program or just establish baseline data. And the reason for this I've seen has a lot to do with either concerns over active or pending development nearby to the spring. And this example on the right is a location sketch of a spring that has a natural gas pipeline going in like very close to it on someone's property. And then another one that I've been experiencing a lot lately is people reaching out saying, hey, this spring has gone dry for the first time in known history. And so while that's a concern, it is great that people are reaching out and wanting this stuff to be studied. And I couldn't do this PowerPoint without listing some of our limitations. As it is, we don't have any full-time dedicated staff. I'm essentially the main person working on this, but I also have many other responsibilities and many other hats. And then also limited funding. We do have some, money for sampling with the water quality. We got some extra money through the legislature in our last session for that, and then we can use some general revenue for our groundwater monitoring programs for the program, but we don't have, any full-blown money coming to the program by the legislature every year. And those things limit our program outreach and expansion. And then lastly, our IT department has been kind of a limiting factor in the sense that we've been waiting a long time, I would say years, on getting spring data fields accommodated into the groundwater database. At present, all of the flow values I get at Springs, I enter into an Excel sheet. And while it works for now, it's not ideal, and it doesn't make it so that people can download the data immediately. And I would also add that, once we get those fields accommodated in the database, we can enter measurements taken by other entities. And, my dream is for the TWDB to host a Springs database that we can really outfit. On the positive and exciting side of things, we have requested additional resources from the legislature, and that's essentially if they would grant that in this next session in 2025, then we would have the money to fund a full-time dedicated staff to this, which would greatly increase our ability to grow the program and focus on it and other things. So now getting to y'all, I just wanted to bring up a couple of things. How is all this relevant? Why am I here talking to y'all? And based on my brief research of Bruin's texts, you know, there are springs documented and that y'all know about too in your district in Bastrop and Lead counties. In Bruin's text, there's 24. However, there's only a fraction of that in the TWDB database. And then when you look at those, the overlap, there's only, you know, next to no, there's only one spring that's in both Bruin and the TWD database for Bastrop, and then 4 for Lee County. And then to add to that, Bruin was in 1981. That was his work. And since then, there's only been one spring in Bastrop County that has been recently reported on. And y'all might know of Robert Mace and his follow-up on Bruin's work in a paper that he published in 2024. They looked at all these springs, and Burleson Spring they reported flowing via 2020 satellite imagery, which is pretty loose. So what I'm trying to get at here is, you know, springs are some of the least studied of Texas groundwater resources, and it's no surprise that there's not a whole lot of data, but I think that calls for some change and just, you know, do some new documentation and kind of try to get the ball rolling here. And let's say, you know, y'all are able to do some monitoring of your own, or we can exist in some kind of, you know, partnership in some capacity. You know, what would Lost Pines GCD like to get out of springs monitoring? Do y'all want to have all of the Bruin's springs or every existing spring documented in y'all's district? Would you like to get updated data annually? Are y'all looking to get a better understanding of how and where recharge affects springs, or how pumping affects springs? And lastly, like, I know I don't know all the steps for this, but, you know, some districts do have desired future conditions based on spring flow, which is an interesting thing. And so those things, what you want to get out of monitoring will inform a monitoring approach. And there are low budget and high budget items. Luckily, a lot of springs monitoring can be done with low budget. Things like spring owner anecdotes. You know, maybe a spring has been in a family for 50 or 100 years. They're going to have a lot of inside knowledge of that spring and how it reacts to, you know, various factors. Another low budget items, you know, you can implement low tech field methods such as the volumetric flow method, or you could just get updated coordinates of true locations of springs. As far as high budget items go, they obviously require money, but you know, the Texas Water Development Board is a resource, and we like to partner with GCDs, and we can assist in certain ways. And one of those being water quality lab analyses. While we can't just, you know, do everything, we can provide some assistance dependent on the number of sites, frequency, and things like that. And as far as doing measurements with, like, you know, like the Flow Tracker 2, or installing pressure transducers to get hydrographs of, you know, really high resolution grade of spring flow, you know, that is something that we could work on with y'all, and it would probably involve a spring within y'all's district getting added to our program. But that being said, these are all things to consider when it comes to springs monitoring, and I look forward to having more discussions with y'all. I'm glad that I was able to come and talk today to y'all about the background and everything, and just leaving it there for any questions.
Hey, Cody, my name is Elvis Hernandez. I'm the president of the Lost Pines. And in terms of your question of what would the Lost Pines like to get out of the monitoring, I think the answer would be yes to most every item that you listed. Better understanding of the recharge implications on pumping on springs, how recharge affects spring, creation of DFCs, updating the account of the springs, all of those, I think we are interested in. I guess it's just a
Mhm.
matter of prioritization. So, appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
So Cody, this is Kay Rogers. I talked to you at the Groundwater. I'm the one who tricked you into coming and talking to us. So if we could, what would it take to add Burleson Springs? Because I know where it is. It's right by the Colorado and it's on somebody's property that I know. But I mean, is that something that you all would consider doing? And what would you do to do that?
Yeah, so I think the first step there would be to talk with the landowner and see if they're interested in us coming out for an initial visit. And
what
usually
would
what
you
that
coming out entail? Because I know that's what they'd want to know.
right. So with their permission, we would, get some of those baseline water quality parameters, just, temperature, pH, connectivity of the spring. We would try to measure the flow, and we would also probably have the budget to do some pretty extensive water quality analyses. And depending on, site conditions and some of evaluating the criteria that I listed earlier in the PowerPoint, we could, in theory, add it to the annual site visit list. And approaches going forward, even beyond that, as far as the more real-time equipment and getting more real-time data, hourly, things like that, that would have to be evaluated after visiting the site. As it's every site is really different, and it has to just be like looked at individually.
Is Burleson, would that be your top priority or one of the top priorities for Bastrop Lee County?
Well, admittedly, I don't know a lot about all of the springs in Bastrop and Lee counties. I just mentioned it in this presentation because it was the only one that I knew of that has had some sort of follow-up since 1981. So is it the priority? Maybe it is. I think
Okay,
that
fair enough.
talking to y'all would be also helpful in that regard.
Yeah, it's something we could, investigate. Confirm.
From time to time, we have spring owners come to our meetings and express various concerns about their spring flow and that sort of thing. And we really never have anywhere to send them. Or how could we coordinate with you to help them get answers to some of their questions?
We could start with an email. I think would be a great starting point. And the discussion could go from there. Maybe a phone call. Sometimes I find is more helpful. But my contact info right here is available for y'all to pass along to anyone that is interested.
Okay, thank you.
Cody,
Yeah, question.
a number of years ago, I thought somebody I think at A&M, Betsy maybe, was doing an update on Gunnar Brune Springs. Have you incorporated that in your database?
Sorry, who was the?
I think her name was Betsy. Last name doesn't come to me, but there was an update on Gunnar Brune's. There was an effort.
Right, I think I know what you're talking about, and unfortunately, I'm blanking on her name as well. But I know she worked with the Water Development Board, and they had this whole project to visit the counties that Brune could not. And in my understanding, this initiative was somewhat unsuccessful in that the owners of a lot of those springs were not open to basically being a part of that update, and it kind of fell off. I don't know where all of that data went.
Yeah, I've not heard any updates on that, so that makes sense. Second question, you're visiting the springs once a year. Are you concerned about seasonal variation in spring flow?
Well, we try and visit at the same time every year, and that would largely be in March and April. And yes, I am concerned with those things, and I would like to even have more visits, once in the summer, maybe once in the spring, or something like that. But as I mentioned, we're quite resource limited, and it does take a lot of effort to get out to some of these places. I would like to see going forward more of these sites get the real-time equipment installed at them, so that there's a continuous log instead of one discrete measurement per year. So that is a long-term goal.
Well, I think this is a really good project. Congratulations, Cody. This is important stuff.
Thank you very much.
Any further questions? All right, I don't see any. So thank you, Cody. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you all very much. And feel free to reach out anytime.
Thank you again. All right, next item is agenda item 4C, discussion, consideration, and possible action on LRE water task order for the Bureau of Reclamation grant. So this is just finalizing the task order. We received a grant from the Bureau of Reclamation, as you know, a matching federal grant. And so this is just the form, getting the form, that task order in hand over to LRE. So it's more administrative than anything else.
Mr. President, this really just kind of lays out LRE's role. The majority of the work is being done by subs through LRE, which would be Bill Hutchison and Michelle Sutherland. And so this task order really is to help formalize what LRE's role in that project is, which is essentially to be our liaison between the subs, the district, and the Bureau of Rec, handling our reporting and all the other requirements that are necessary on our end. So this task order just creates a formalized system for them to basically bill for that labor, so we have a way to account for the time and labor spent on that role. Yes, ma'am.
Do you mind reminding me what the task is?
It's the development of a localized model for the district. So rather than using the regional GAM to predict groundwater levels and impacts pumping, we're creating a GAM that basically only applies to Lee and Bastrop County, but they can interface with the regional GAM and pass. So it'll give us a little bit more regional specificity and a little bit better accuracy within our district of how both internal and external pumping will impact our water.
That has a 1.5-year timeline. So that's the duration of the project.
This in the budget already?
Yes.
Okay, I went through here and I was reading this and I didn't see a task for technical review or for QA/QC analysis.
That is all already delegated to Bill Hutchison and Michelle Sutherland. So the grant as it was written for, as we applied for it, did not include LRE. And the grant, all the work was delegated to Bill Hutchison and Michelle Sutherland. LRE has basically offered to fill in the administrative roles and take care of some of the reporting with the grant agency Bureau of Rec. So this really just governs their role within the existing grant, the existing grant proposal. All the QA work and everything else that's already delegated to Bill and Michelle.
I mean, if they put forward something like this, so we know what.
That was all in the original grant. So that there was no task order associated with that because they were essentially operating outside of the existing structure with LRE when we proposed this, when it was funded. So all of that is covered in the original grant, and the original budget narratives. This is just to cover LRE's portion of acting as our intermediary between us and the Bureau of Rec.
District would require any action on our part, or is it just an update to us?
We would just need to approve the task order so that they can use that to bill their labor.
Any further questions on the task order? This item? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the LRE task order.
Okay, your motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Director Semang. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Next item is the discussion, consideration, and possible action on the district prohibited technologies policy. Mr. Salegi, this is basically the TikTok law.
Exactly. So by November 20th of this year, today, all state agencies and government entities needed to have a policy or need to have a policy prohibiting the use of certain prohibited technologies that are outlined in the government code 620006. So otherwise known as the TikTok. That's what you have in front of you.
So this is basically straight out of the legislature.
Essentially, yeah.
Essentially, so,
You can't have these apps on
Yep.
Lost Pines owned devices or devices that you
Yeah,
might own that you do Lost Pines.
yeah, we've been in
business on.
compliance with this all,
Sure.
all along.
Yeah.
Just to be sure, once the policy is adopted, we'll send it to Stratmont and they can control what's installed on the district systems. So once y'all adopt this, we'll get the IT consultants to lock the system down and make sure we're, at least on district owned stuff, that we're in compliance.
Okay, Dave, got a section here on personal devices
Yes.
used for business. How are you handling that?
That's an excellent question. I'll need to take up all of your phones and tablets, I guess.
That's why I'm asking the question.
Just that we can't use, we can't use a device with those applications to do district business.
Anything they're doing, right?
Yeah. We are gonna, all the directors are about to get email accounts. That's separate. That's a separate issue, but we do have, that's in the works where we're all gonna get the district Lost Pines emails.
In the GM report, so I'll just scratch that off. Since you-
Yeah, I mean, this is a new law, like, so I think a lot of people are trying to kind of figure out how to implement it. But
Okay, do we all have to sign something saying we're all gonna comply with this?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Okay.
Oh, we do. So each director,
Okay.
once we
Y'all,
approve.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It said employees, we're not employees
Page
technically,
9.
so.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so we will have to each individually sign something?
Yes.
And do you have that available for today or?
Not
later?
yet.
Okay, so that'll be a to-do.
Sure.
All right. All right, so I'll entertain a motion.
So
All right, motion to adopt the district's prohibited technologies policy. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Director Rogers. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. And then I guess we will have some memo to sign probably for the next board meeting in December.
Yeah. Like a statement.
Yeah, statement of sorts, yeah. All right, next item would be agenda item 4E, the discussion, consideration, and possible action on Aqua's Water Supply Corporation request for extension of the deadline for well completion under District Rule 5.5.
Mr. President, members of the board, very similar to what we had 2 months ago for Thomas Turfgrass. We've had a request from Aqua to extend their drilling deadline for the 4 wells that were permitted last fall, which would be Watterson 1 and 2, as well as Tyner and Foster wells in South Bastrop County. Again, this is a fairly procedural thing. Director Semang, you made it pretty clear how you felt about this, but you know, they've designing and drilling a public water supply well within a year is challenging at best. And like I said previously, I think once during my 12 or so years with the district as a entity actually done that. So these requests are fairly common from our permit holders. And at this point, I would support granting them that drilling extension to allow them time to get their equipment in place and get up and running.
And I have this on our to-do list for next year to amend our rule so that we don't have to always be granting as a de facto standard, always granting extensions. Obviously, we need to amend our rule and provide more time.
Much like previous director Fleming spent years trying to change the meeting to 3:30, I spent years trying to extend it.
When we finally got the meeting for 3:30, so we might
Director
actually.
Fleming retired before he got to see the meeting shine, I changed, so hopefully we can change this rule in the near future.
Yeah, I expect early in the spring of next year.
Guess we should have said that we changed the time in his honor.
I move we extend Aqua's extension for drilling a well.
Second.
I heard the second from Director Cole. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion passes. And the next agenda item is discussion, consideration, and possible action on Aqua Water Supply Corporation well replacement request. This is 4F agenda item.
And Mr. President and members of the board, I need to clarify something with our legal counsel. This was posted as a well replacement, but the request by Aqua was an amendment to an existing permit. So I don't know if the language to
What was the amendment?
amendment to add a new well to an existing permit.
So it's not a replacement.
No.
Okay.
Is the language sufficient to cover that, or?
No. No. No.
We may have to reschedule this
Yeah.
then.
So
We'll
we,
put it.
We had the wrong, so we
Wait,
apologize.
The
We had the wrong
commenter
word.
aside, we need to put it on December.
Okay.
Yeah.
it's adding a new well to an existing aggregate permit
That explains why they provided so much information.
rather than replacement. Yeah, so that's a mistake on our end. We should not have, we didn't phrase that correctly, so I do apologize.
I also want to say thank you to Aqua for providing their conservation. Everybody gave it to us.
So we will reword this and get this corrected for December. And then with that, we will then move on to agenda item 4G. Discussion, consideration, and possible action on draft 2025 Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District annual budget. Last month, we reviewed a draft of the budget. And this is hopefully the final draft. And this is up for our review and approval here today. Mr. Totten.
Yes, Mr. President, and members of the board, after we provided the draft budget to you last month, there were some suggestions that for additional programs that the district could consider, programs which were not covered by the budget that was suggested, that was provided to you. We've reviewed the district's income, and my recommendation for today would be that we approve the draft budget that's been put before you. However, I'd also like a directive from you as a board that we go back and incorporate $200,000 of estimated interest for 2025 into our budget, and then begin to work with the budget committee and other committees within at the board level to allocate that $200,000. At this point in time, we have suggestions for possible programs for the district to assist in the cost of plugging water wells. We also have a suggestion for possibly developing a rainwater harvesting program. So what my recommendation again tonight would be to approve this draft budget. We can make this our 2025 budget. Or direct the staff to incorporate $200,000 of interest and work with the budget committee to allocate that extra $200,000 of interest income. And we will amend our budget in January of 2025 to reflect the additional income, as well as the new programs that we can implement using that money. At the same time, if you as board members have ideas, other ways, other programs or other ideas that you think might be a prudent use of that additional funds, if you can, provide that to the staff or to the budget committee, we can consider that as well as we work up the budget for January. So that would be my recommendation for this evening.
Okay, so prove this now.
Yes, sir.
Look at amending it
Yes, sir.
in January.
Yes. So right now, the projected revenue for the district that's in the budget is strictly permit fees. It does not account for interest accrued through either the tax pool or through our general banking accounts here in the district. So 200,000 is a rough estimate of the annual interest we would expect to accrue. And so rather than trying to rush it through and get it into the budget and allocate it and everything else, if we approve this budget today, that'll square us away and we'll be good to go to start the new fiscal year in January 2025. But that'll also coming back and amending the budget after the start of the year to include the additional line items. Yes, ma'am.
So basically 4950 that says interest income, which is blank now,
Yes, ma'am.
will be filled in with whatever the interest amount is.
About $200,000. Yes, ma'am.
Is there any reason why we can't just do it all in January? Just one simple motion? I don't care. I'm just curious.
We need to have a budget adopted before the end of the fiscal year. So we have to have a budget in place before the end of 2024.
Yeah, and I kind of threw this monkey wrench in at the last minute, so I apologize for that. But we had the budget was all ready to go. And I kind of was looking through our numbers and I just saw that, we keep adding and growing to our savings. And at some point we have to say, okay, we have enough savings. And I think now is a good time. And just on interest alone, we're making about $200,000 a year just in interest alone. So that's, kind of money that we could, I believe, put into some new programs. And I've heard two new programs recently, rainwater harvesting programs and plugging a program to help plug wells up. And I thought those were, good opportunities. And I think we have the 200,000 that is just interest only. It won't affect our savings at all. And so I kind of threw this out at the last minute, so I apologize for getting it all confused. But the thought was we'll deal with that next year. And we'll have the committees look at the rainwater harvesting and put together, some sort of plan. And then when we're ready, we can amend the budget and add that 200,000.
Can you get us an exact number and not just
That's what the committee, that's why we're not ready right now today.
An exact number for the interest income?
yeah.
That requires some guesswork because we have to.
You have to assume what the interest rates are
We have
gonna
we have to
be.
assume.
Well, I mean, can we just reflect on what it was last year?
Yeah.
Yes, and that's where that $200,000 number comes
That's
from.
where that came
Even,
from.
it came out that amount? Even?
Roughly.
Okay.
I mean, if
In
you
fact,
want,
if you were gonna round the number, it's about 200,000 rounded.
Okay.
But yeah, that's what we kind of are
I
accruing
understand.
every year for the last several years.
Is the difference in the remote well monitoring because we're having other people do it?
Yeah.
That's what- That might be included in hydrogeology or something like.
That probably should have been, yeah.
I was just wondering why the difference.
Not sure what.
yes, sir. I don't know if Cheryl wants to touch on this as education, but there was one last minute change that was proposed, which was increasing the education and outreach budget. It's currently 7,500, bumping it up to an even 10,000 just to allow for some additional programs in the coming years. We could do that by redirecting some funds from the contingency to cover the difference. So
I asked Claire to come up with a detailed budget, which she has done. To the best of our ability with what we know today.
Any other questions on the budgets?
That's it.
Yes, Doug. Oh, man. Rainwater.
The rainwater program
I went
potential?
to that program last night. It was very, very good.
Great. Thanks for the report.
Yeah. I think it's what very worthwhile.
Well, I would make a motion to adopt the draft budget.
The draft budget with the change to
Yes.
contingency and
Yes.
education,
So adopting the draft budget with the change in the
education and outreach.
education outreach, bumping that number up to 10,000
Yes,
Yes.
and remove, and taking the difference from contingency.
and taking it from contingency, which was available. Okay, so that's the motion to adopt the budget with that change, increasing the education.
Thank you.
That's a good.
Okay, seconded by Director Rogers. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. With that, the next item, let's see, G, that was G. Next item is H, discussion, consideration, and possible action on the groundwater management area 12 pumping file. So we kind of touched upon this last month, and the last couple of months we've been talking about the GMA 12 and the pumping files there. In the past, the past 3 cycles, all the GCDs in the GMA 12 would all put in all their permits, all their known permits, to their full amounts. They were, and this is shown because, for example, Lost Pines, in our pumping file, we currently have recharge included in that pumping file, even though they haven't started production. So in the past, the standard has been that all the groundwater districts just put in all their pumping, all their permits and to their full amount. There was even a letter written by Brazos Valley to Post Oak in last cycle requesting to add in all of Post Oak's permits. They were trying to reduce one of their permits for Vista Ridge, I believe. So that's been kind of the standard for the last 15 years. And 2 months ago, we authorized Dr. Hutchinson to update our pumping file with all of our known permits to date. So that then what has occurred since then, we've learned that Brazos Valley is changing the standard, their criteria by which they're putting their permits into their pumping file. Their new criteria is that the pumping has to be they must believe that the pumping will start within the next 5 years. So this is a change to the standard. If we had followed that standard last cycle, we would not have added recharge, for example. This is a change in their criteria that's being used. I think it's incorrect to do this in this manner. I believe this is a 50-year planning cycle, and that's what the GMA 12 is chartered to do. They provide a 50-year planning window, and so to not take into account all of the known permits, I think is not doing justice to what the GMA 12 is their purpose. There's about 140,000 acre feet of granted permits that Brazos Valley is not counting. So it's significant.
Has it been agreed?
Not yet. The GMA 12 really right now, they've been just considering the current DFCs and the 9 factors. And we will be finishing that up in December, are the last 3 factors that Lost Pines will be presenting on the last 3 of the 9 factors in December. So this will certainly come up starting next year. I believe in February is the next plan, GMA 12 for next year, and they will start to discuss the updated pumping files and updates to the DFCs and pumping files. So I brought this up again at this agenda item to see if I believe that we should also authorize Dr. Hutchinson to produce a second pumping file. I do believe that what we did was proper. We should have all our permits in the pumping file, but I do believe that we should also have a second pumping file to adhere to the new Brazos Valley standard, so that we can compare apples to apples. So that if they do go down this path of omitting a substantial 140,000 acre feet of permits because they don't believe they're gonna start in the next 5 years. I think that then we should do the same in order to have a pumping file that allows us to compare apples to apples.
Just for comparison, even if we don't agree with it.
Yeah, even if we don't agree with it, I think to start off with, to show the comparison would be valuable. And so I would like for, I believe Dr. Hutchison, we should charter Dr. Hutchison to create a second pumping file with this new criteria. I think in that pumping file, we would add, I think recharge phase one, Mr. Totten believes may start in the next 5 years. So we would add recharge phase one, but probably we would not add LCRA or gatehouse, for example. So, it would be a different, slightly different, pumping file. But at least it would be able to compare us to the Brazos Valley's current position. I'm hopeful that they will come around and put in all their permits. I believe that gives the public and all the, investors and permittees a clearer situation. If you read the letter that they wrote to Post Oak, they make it very clear that, that this sets a bad precedent. Cause it's kind of arbitrary. They just picked 5 years. I mean, why isn't it pumping that's gonna start in the next 4 years or 6 years or, and so it's a little, arbitrary and not a fixed process.
So what is Texas Water Development Board gonna do? What they do, our mags and everything else?
Well, we'll have to settle this before it goes to the TWDB. This will be settled at the GMA 12.
The creation of a pumping file, labor intensive or expensive, or does it take 2 weeks, or is it gonna take all of his time for a day, or what do you know about that?
Well, my understanding is that, he's got the pumping file, just the current one to start with. So he's not starting from scratch. He's already there was an issue that, if you recall, he recommended in fixing the exempt water issue. There was something with exempt water that he wanted to fix. So he's gonna do that regardless.
Okay, that's not the answer.
Yeah,
to my
no,
question.
he's not starting from scratch.
Okay.
But, we, short of asking Dr. Hutchison, or maybe probably Mr. Totten would know better than I.
Nick knows something.
Not enough to give you.
Okay.
Mr. Totten, can you weigh in on, how much is this compatible to what we've already tasked Dr. Hutchison to do?
I'm just curious.
No, he asked how much it cost.
Well, yeah, I'd like to know what it costs, but I also want to know how much time it's gonna take.
The cost answer I don't have, 'cause I don't know off the top of my head what Bill's hourly rate is. But in terms of time, most of this is done programmatically, so if you think of the pumping file as a series of spreadsheets, where each spreadsheet is an aquifer and each grid cell is a grid cell in the model. If you wanted to go through and pull out, say, aqua sits there here, you would just go grid cell by grid cell and say, if aqua's in the grid cell, zero out that pumping. And so you can write a program to go through, find the appropriate grid cells and zero it out, or subtract the appropriate amount from it. It's a programmatic thing, so it may take him a little bit of time to set the program up to do it, but once it's done, it can run and produce a new pumping file based on whatever changes. So with him being an expert, he can do it a lot faster than someone like I could, but it's not a zero amount of time and effort, but it's not Herculean by any stretch either. So somewhere between zero and infinite dollars.
Didn't we, in the last DFC cycle, didn't we have different files run for during the
Yes.
discussing and discussing this and that?
We made
And you don't remember from writing checks that there was a lot of money or little
Well,
money?
there was not a single bill for just that.
I got it.
That was always lumped in with a lot of other projects, so they're, off the top of my head, I didn't look at that, exact breakdown. If you'd like, we can get that answer.
No, I just, when you talk about creating new files and another pumping file, I'm just curious
Right.
how intensive the labor would be.
Significantly less than building a new model, I think. So.
How about a new house?
Okay, this is just an add-on to pumping file that Scott there. which means he's gotta probably change the code. He's gotta change the code a little bit to get these things in.
Yes.
So this isn't something where you're starting from scratch or anything. This is a modification.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so my guess, this is not gonna be a 6-figure deal. It's gonna be considerably less.
Yes, I would say that, yes.
Okay.
Same between zero and infinite dollars, maybe a little bit. It's not gonna be free, but it's not gonna break our
It's
budget.
not gonna break the bank.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
We've already authorized Dr. Hudson to update our pumping file with all of our permits. So
Okay.
he's already doing that. We've authorized that 2 months ago.
Gotcha.
I make a motion that we authorize Bill Hutchinson to come up with the modified pumping file based upon the criteria that we not include, recharge.
Well, based upon the Brazos Valley criteria.
Right.
Okay, so the motion was made to create a second pumping file using the Brazos Valley criteria.
I'll second that.
And heard a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
If I may suggest, can we have a second motion that allows the governance committee to kind of back, because there may be some nuance in these changes that we need to consider. Because you specifically said recharge phase 1, but recharge phase 1 may come online, but does that mean we never model them going to the additional phase? So there are some nuanced questions I think need to be addressed as we work through this, and if we can charge the governance committee with helping us weigh that way we're not trying to make all these decisions right now from the diet.
Well, I just think we're just using their criteria, so whatever
But we are the only district that I know of that has tiered and
tiered,
phased
so that makes
permits,
it different. Okay, so
we'll need to evaluate how
I
you
need
want
to-
to, yes, sir.
to handle that unique instance.
Especially since you specifically said recharge phase 1, we need to deal with that.
Why
So
don't we delegate it to you?
I would like direction from y'all. My opinion is we leave everything in and do it like we have. So if y'all want to go a different route, I'd like you to direct on how you want that route run.
I'm not saying we go a different route. I'm just saying to have
A comparison,
a
yes, ma'am.
comparison. So, I mean,
I have a question.
that's Nancy.
Yes. What you're saying is that you have a universe already in place of wells, is that correct?
I'm not sure I understand yes, ma'am, we have.
Universe, your database, you have a universe of everything you've given a permit for.
Yes, ma'am.
And all you're doing is slicing and dicing it, or are you gonna leave stuff out?
So what they are suggesting is that right now, that pumping file has every permit that's issued in every aquifer running out for 50 years. And what this motion is that we look at any permit that's unlikely to come online during the next 5 years, we zero it out and we don't include that in any evaluation going forward.
For offering, is that for offering a new permit?
No, ma'am, this is just for evaluation of the DFCs.
This is
Okay.
for the GMA 12 discussion when the different groundwater district go to discuss the new desired future conditions. This is one of the tools that's used in the discussion to come up with the DFC.
Okay, understand, but using the whole universe of what you've already issued is going to be primary for deciding whether or not you will add a new permit at any point.
So, ma'am, this is a question about regional planning for impacts in the future. This isn't really pertinent directly to permitting. This is a question of planning future aquifer conditions.
Understand. I'm just making sure that you don't say, well, this is what we've got right now, not what we permitted, and offer another permit because you've got a lower universe.
They are
a
two
permit.
separate processes.
Okay. Thank you.
So
So you would like a second motion,
just.
to allow the governance committee to provide direction with respect to like recharge and the phasing.
Yeah, if there's some nuanced questions that we need to address, I'd like to be able to have some point of contact to be able to get that direction.
If I might, I would make it a little broader for, direction at the GMA regarding the pumping file, or if the board is comfortable giving, the governance committee that authority, giving him direction for all GMA issues. And then ultimately it comes back to you guys for the DFCs. Just trying to.
I would say either committee. I just threw out governance because it popped into my head first. So,
I just hate to see it split up.
and again, in my mind, I was just trying to make a very limited motion to say, if we do have some nuanced questions, is Bill and I are working through developing this revised pumping file. I'd like to have a point of contact through one of the board committees to help us address those questions, to make sure we're doing it in the manner that y'all want it done.
Can I just say that I don't know why we want to go to the expense of actually having it done when we can just say, look, here's yours, here's here, you're not including everything, here's what it's without including, here's it with including, which we've already gone to the expense of doing. And we can say, ours includes everything, but if we took out some of these, ours would be less. Why, I mean, what if we get these things kind of confused?
Well, how much less though? Is it just a little less or is it a lot less? Without going through those steps and having the data to show them what the number would be, it's
Well,
kind of.
It's either right for them to do that or wrong. I mean, they're either gonna do it or not do it. Why does it matter what our difference would be? Because we're not gonna do it. We're gonna include everything, right?
But it's them.
I know it's
I think,
them, but.
wait, I don't think in decisions, and I get where you're going from completely, I kind of agree with you, but because we don't have the comparison, I'm not sure. And I think Elvis wants more detail, just to make sure, and it may not make any difference, but how much money are we gonna spend to find that out? You know?
And angst, but,
Well, it strikes me too that, when the discussion among the GMA 12 districts, in terms of desired future conditions comes up, Brazos, by doing that, they can make a case for further drawing down their DFC and influencing our DFCs.
I get it, but we already have run a file that shows what theirs would be if everything was included. Is that right?
That's in the process. That's what we directed 2 months ago, Dr. Hudson, an update.
Bill already did the full impact on the Lost Pines for the complete permitted package from Brazos Valley. That was done back in September.
Well, then why not
No,
do post those? And then why not do all the districts? I mean.
No, what I was referring to was he was updating our pumping
Oh,
file
yes, yes.
that we up.
Okay. Well, it's been voted on.
I think in terms of direction, we could just come back to the board. And it would just take a month at worst, but I think it should just go through the board.
I was saying, and Bill may look at this and go, this is easy and I have no questions, but half the time that's all, I just wanted to but we can bring it back in December if there are questions. That works as well.
Okay. All right. Are we good with that discussion? We'll just.
Yeah.
All right. All right, moving on to agenda item 4I. The committee reports, possible board discussion, no action will be taken. Financial Services Committee did not meet. So the Governance Committee is up next. So we did meet on November 6th at 9 a.m. via Zoom. In attendance were myself, Director Rogers, Samang, our legal counsel, Natasha Martin, Bobby Salehi, and Jim Totten. We discussed today's agenda. And then we discussed the updates to the LCRA update, the Rambo updates. We discussed the GMA 12 cost sharing interlocal agreement, which has been drafted and it's been, I believe, sent out and I believe Posta reviewed it, and Brazos Valley recently reviewed the interlocal agreement as well. So that's still in process. That's still in works. An auditor RFP, so that staff and our Lost Pines, we're working to get an auditor RFP out. We're also looking at putting disclaimer language into our 3-dimensional mapping file. And we are, as I mentioned earlier, we're migrated onto a new email platform. We have now Microsoft Outlook, and we are planning to roll out email to the rest of the directors. We may have an actual open house that directors can come into the office, and we'll have some IT person help you set up your computer or your laptop, your phone, whatever you use. As long as it doesn't have TikTok on it. And then
Apple.
excuse me?
Everything I have is Apple.
Everything is Apple, so, okay. The Lost Pines, I mentioned also earlier, at the December GMA 12 meeting, the Lost Pines is on the hook for the final 3 factors that we will be presenting. And we had half database training today, half provided some database training for staff earlier this morning. So with that, Infrastructure Committee,
The committee did not meet. We did convene through email updates to things that were going on our earlier agendas. And some of this may be covered by Jim or Claire. Claire's gotten out a second round of letters for well monitors. A mold test was done on the building and that all turned out fine, right, Jim? Jim's waiting on a legal determination regarding the handicap parking spots, and that hasn't come in, but he does have a contractor lined up when we hear back from them. New email server, new office computers are up and running. And Claire and Jim have talked to someone about the website's ADA compliance and some of their auditing tools, and that may come up in the future also.
We did get the determination on the
Oh, you did?
parking striping, and I don't believe we're gonna be pursuing that.
Okay.
So we'll just have to make do with the, whatever lines are left out there.
Education and Outreach Committee.
I will no longer be doing the report as long as Claire Marks is here. Claire, would you like to come up to the podium so we can hear?
I'll be quick.
Glad you could make it here.
Finally, yay.
Great.
Howdy, y'all. How's it going? Alrighty, so I printed it out and put it in front of y'all. I'm gonna go over a few things, not everything. The well monitoring letters we sent out, the second batch of letters on November 8th. We're receiving letters back now. Batch 1 had around 150 different wells on it. Batch 2 was significantly less, in the 50s. So we received letters back from batch 1 that are no longer wells that we're going to be monitoring. So we're going to add them to our well watch program since they said, yes, we agree for you to come out. So they're being added to our well watch program. Rainwater Harvesting 101. We had our first workshop last night. It was fantastic, y'all. Like, we had such a good turnout. We had people asking, when's the next one? People are wanting to get involved. So this is really exciting. I think we had about 25 people show up. About 10 people signed up for our newsletter, and about 5 people signed up for our well watch program. So it was very successful. Last thing, December 6th, it is a Friday. From 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m., we are participating in the Bastrop County Landowners Workshop. I'm going to be setting out a table there with information on who we are and some resources. I would love for some board members to come out. At the Smithville Home and Garden Show, we had board members there, and I thought that went great. It's good for the public to see y'all and that you're involved. And so if you are interested in volunteering, please let me know. You know how to contact me, and we'll get you signed up for that.
Where is it?
It's at the Boy Scout.
The Griffith League.
Boy Scout.
Yeah.
Griffith League?
It's
That's
next door,
not you.
right? It's next.
I have no excuse, because I live next door, so.
It's not GLR, but it's the Scout Ranch on North Shore.
On 1441.
Oh, it's on-
Okay, that's the LCRA Boy Scout Ranch.
Oh, okay. It said Griffith League.
And I'll send y'all, if you're interested, I'll send you all the details of how to get there and all that good stuff. Does anyone have questions for me? Okay, wonderful.
Good
Elvis,
job.
thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for your
Claire.
awesome leadership. We are so lucky to have you. Thank
And
you.
I want to say that Claire, was applying for a grant, right? And made a little film
Yes,
and it was fabulous.
I'll send it to y'all.
It's really
And
good.
I
She did a
applied
great
for
job.
a $100,000 grant for us to produce a documentary basically on the Lost Pines water story, telling the story of water throughout time
from past to now. And we'll hear at the end of November if we got the grant. If not, we may be working with Aqua to produce something. So yeah, I'll send you all the link to the grant video that we made.
That's good.
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
there any chance you could have the rainwater collection course in Bastrop County also?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a way we can
I
do
can
that.
help you find a place over there to do it.
Cool.
Holler at me.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you.
And the management committee did not meet this month. So with that, item 4J, general manager's report, no action will be taken.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. General Manager's report for November of 2024. During the reporting period between October 1st and October 31st, we had 14 new wells that were drilled within the district. Those were all listed on the second page of the report. As you can see, they were all either domestic irrigation wells. During the same reporting period, we performed 4 water quality tests, engaged 8 wells. I will be out in the field with LRE for the next 2 days, starting the annual monitoring up with them. So this will be my last time going out with them, making sure they don't get lost. After this, they'll be flying solo. With regard to drought conditions in Bastrop County, we've just experienced the absolute driest October for Lee and Bastrop County in 130 years of record keeping. And the numbers that you can see in the drought conditions reflect that. For Bastrop County, 66% of the county has moved into moderate drought. 30% is in severe drought, and the remaining 4% is in extreme drought. For Lee County, 92% of Lee County is in moderate drought, and the remaining 2% is in stage D2 severe drought. So as merciful as our spring and summer were, it has definitely dried out in the last several months. And like I said, October was the driest October on record within our district. As we mentioned previously, GMA 12 has not met since the last board meeting. We do have a meeting coming up December 13th at the Post Oak offices. It'll also be available online. This will be the conclusion of the process of us kind of retrospectively looking at the 9 factors required to adopt a DFC and how that applies to the DFCs that were adopted in the last cycle. This, as I've said before, this kind of lays a base case for why we need to make changes or any changes that need to be made to the DFCs within the districts. The mitigation stakeholder group has not formally met. I've had discussions with most of the members and traded a few emails. And at this point, the only recommendation that really remains from that group has been that, that we consider reevaluating our program to make it more like Post Oak Savannah, so less of reimbursement and more of just where the district handles everything. That's something we've avoided, but like I said, that's kind of the recurring feedback that we've gotten. So we may want to look at that in the spring. We have transferred off of our old aged email system, so we should be out of the days of having to free up server space or trying to juggle room for attachments. The district staff has been on the new email system for about a month and a half now. I think we've gotten all the bugs out of it, so we're comfortable getting ready to roll that out for you as board members. So we'll start getting that all set up on the back end, and once it's ready, like Elvis mentioned, we'll schedule a day where the IT consultants come in and you can bring your devices and they'll get you set up on that new email. So you'll be able to use Melissa Cole at Lost Pines Water or Cheryl Smith at lostpineswater.org. So you'll have your own work-related emails for all district-related business. We'll work on getting that scheduled and let y'all know when we can get the IT guys down to help get all of you set up for that. With regard to pending permits, we do have another pending permit from Aqua seeking to actually amend. It's an increase in both the instantaneous rate and the annual production for one of their wells in the S field in Bastrop County. That's probably it's going to require much more review because it is increasing both of the major characteristics for that permit. So it'll be sometime in the spring that we'll get that to y'all as well. As far as upcoming meetings, as I mentioned, GMA 12 meets December 13th at the Post Oak offices. It'll also be available online. Additionally, Region K is meeting December 6th at the LCRA Dalco Center there in Austin. So anybody that's interested in that, that meeting will be occurring. I have not seen, when the next Region G meeting is, but as soon as I know, I will let you know about that one as well. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
When we say that we're responsible for, at the GMA 12 meeting for the last 3,
Yes, ma'am.
is that you making a presentation?
Gretchen and I are working together on that one.
Okay.
We haven't flipped a coin to see who gets the honor of actually presenting it, but one of us will. Yes, ma'am.
Costa presented the first 3 factors. Brazos Valley presented the factors 4 through 6. And then now we're presenting the last 3 factors. So it was split up between the big 3 groundwater.
And realistically, a lot of it's going to be recycled from the last time that we went through these factors at the end of the last planning cycle. But just looking at any changes in context that would be relevant to each of those factors. So it's gonna be a lot of cannibalizing other people's work and claiming it as our own.
Perfect. Anything else for Jim? All right, moving on to agenda item 4K, consideration of future agenda items. Well, for sure, we'll have Aqua back on the agenda. We have the Rambo final preliminary hearing on Judge Abel's recommendation. And we will have the 2024 budget amendment.
In January.
That's
Oh, I'm sorry, no, the 2024 budget amendment, December. Yes.
December, yeah, because I remember our auditors,
Yeah, I was thinking about next year's
the
budget.
next year, the other, yeah, the 2025. No, this is for this year, 2024. According to our auditors, we have to have our amendment
Yeah.
trued up by the end of this year. So that the budget amendment 2024 budget amendment will be on the calendar. The Rambo final preliminary hearing and Aqua. Yeah, there might be an LCRA
Amendment, yes.
amendment.
Yeah. Seeking to move a few of their wells.
Okay. All right, so that's what I have for future agenda items. Anybody else?
I would like to add a legislative update for water bills, water changes, things that are being proposed right now, what's going on down.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Yeah, there's a, this would probably be a good time. Now
Greg
there's
will
a,
be there.
yeah, right now Greg Ellis will be here next month.
Right.
Good.
December. So Greg will actually,
Meeting, yeah.
yeah, Greg will be here for the December meeting for the Rambo item. So perhaps he can give us an update on what's on their calendars, what's been filed thus far. Great idea. Let me write that down to ask Greg, because he'll already be here for December. Anything else? Got that written down. All right, possible, next item is item 4L, discussion, consideration, and possible action on district board meeting calendar. I don't think there's anything to update there. Anybody?
No, I had just questioned Jim, because normally we had our December meeting the 2nd Wednesday instead of 3rd. I'm fine with the 3rd. He pointed out to me that we did not do that this year.
Yeah. Yeah, the next, agenda item 4M, set the date and location of the next meeting. That would be Wednesday, the 18th of December at 3:30 p.m. here in Giddings.
That works pretty good.
Yeah.
Does that work for you, Cheryl?
Oh, yeah, I had it on my calendar for the 2nd, because we've done that so many years.
Yeah.
And then Claire and I were talking about a program. It'll end at 3:00 on the 18th. So
Okay.
I wanted to be clear. So the 18th is great.
Yeah, the 18th is the day. Okay, so the 18th, Wednesday?
Director Smith, historically, if our meeting falls within a week of Thanksgiving or Christmas, we move it back.
Right.
But this year, we're 7 days exactly out for both of those, so we didn't move them. But if we were any closer to the holidays, we would have bumped them back.
Okay.
That's been the kind of the process in the
I
past.
would prefer the 18th this year. Thank you.
I'll be on vacation.
Oh,
Okay.
All right, and then next item up, we are going to, so that was 4M.
Yeah.
So next we will go into executive session. Item 5A. We will enter executive session at 5 p.m. Executive session of the board pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071 or any closed session permitted by law on item 4N related to the general manager's 2024 evaluation. So with that, we will go to executive session, and if the directors, if you can bring your summary pages that were on left on the dais for you, there should be an evaluation summary.
And, Nancy, if you'd like to call the office, we can just put you on speaker if you want to join in.
Can y'all call me? It'd be easier.
We can call you. I got your number.
Okay.
All right, so we will reconvene from executive session at 5:11 p.m. No action or votes were taken. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion. I move that we approve the general manager's annual performance evaluation and approve a cost of living increase for his compensation.
For a motion, do I have a second? Second. Second, I heard from Director Textor first. So Director Textor with the second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nancy, you were muted. And you need to, we need to see your video in order, if you want to vote. So we'll need you to, there we go.
There we go. Sorry about that. Aye.
Right, so it's unanimous vote. Thank you. The motion passes. That was item 4N, the discussion, consideration, and possible action on the GM 2024 evaluation. So with that, we will adjourn tonight's meeting at 5:13 p.m. So thank you.